Hey, Dave Melenda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I got some really good news and I got some really bad news. So we are going to start with some bad news today. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but the bad news is time flies. So I am totally aware of how fast time is going in my later years in my life. And if we stopped right there, it would be a total drag. But I did say there was good news. And the good news is we are the pilot. And I found the guy that created that, and I'm super excited. So I'm hanging out with Blaine Oelkers. How are you today, sir?
Hey, Dave, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I just want to say, hey, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I hope I can add some value today. But I want to say that in looking over your podcast and listening to some episodes myself, you are already adding value, creating a little results ripple. And so I want to thank you for taking the time. These aren't easy to coordinate and put online and make available to people. So you're doing a great job and happy to be here today.
Well, thank you. I have to say, I do the easy work. I press play, and then Dana, my producer, does all the hard work. So thank you, Dana. I know you're listening. So
all right.
Feel free to take the rest of the day off when you hear this. So, but it's interesting. Thank you for hanging out. An author and got a bunch of stuff going on. So I want to jump in, but I want to understand why you wrote that about how the good news is we're the pilot. So we often feel out of control. We often feel like there's way too much to do in a day. So how have you kind of mastered that and helped your clients along the way with that? I want to write some notes. So go ahead and fill me in on that.
Yeah. I think for me, this idea of, the bad news is time flies and life is flying. But the good news is that you're the pilot. And so many people, they get on the plane every morning and they look into the cockpit and there's no pilot at all, but they still sit down and they're not going anyplace, right? Because they don't have a plan. They haven't thought it through.
Sure.
And so I had I had a moment of dawning comprehension a long time ago, which kind of set me up to become America's chief results officer, so to speak. And I graduated from Purdue University. My degree was in computer science, and I had this job, and I was working this regular kind of corporate job. And I got back from a business trip, and my son Bo, he's 1 year old at the time, and he kind of was giving me the cold shoulder. And I'm like, Beth, what's going on here? Why is Bo giving me the cold shoulder? And she said, well, you were gone so long, he kind of forgot who you were. And I'm like, what?
Oh no.
So that kind of like hit me in the heart, and I had this kind of clarifying decision I made that night that I was going to work from home no matter what. Now, So I started two businesses, kept my regular job. It took me a year, but a year later, I left that job, and that was 27 years ago. Now, the kids are out of the nest now. But what happened is, by being the work from home dad, it gave me a lot of time to kind of figure out what am I good at? What do I like to do? And it turns out that I like to help people get results. And so about 10 years ago, I started a company called Selfluence, but it's all about helping people take control of their lives by taking control of themselves. And so that's kind of what I've done and help people with. A lot of all of my clients are business owners. Maybe some sales professionals too, but it's mostly mastermind groups. And it's about it's kind of getting yourself to do those things you should do. It's kind of personal implementation is really what I specialize in, and helping people take control of their lives by taking control of themselves. So I really focus in on that. I studied a lot of the science and all that, but in the end, I just want to deliver like practical, real world stuff. And what I found is most people, it's like figuring out, you already know how to do it. You might have just forgot a little bit.
Sure.
So it's kind of remembering those things that you already know how to do, and bringing those to light so you can kind of maximize your day on a daily basis.
Wow, that's awesome. I'll never forget, Blaine, I was traveling, speaking somewhere, I don't remember where it was, and I was doing one of my keynotes on 10 tips to better communicate. And somebody comes up to me after and says, Dave, I got to tell you, I didn't learn a thing. And at first I was kind of taken back, but I was fortunate to, be able to recoup. And I said, thanks for sharing that. The interesting thing is, it's not about how many of these did you know, it's about how many of these things are you actually doing. And it's to your point, right? A lot of this stuff that we talk about every week isn't like earth shattering. No one ever knew it before. This is brand new research, never discovered before. A lot of the stuff that you and I work with is stuff that is, readily available, but it's just a matter of trying to get it implemented into our daily life. And so, is the mastermind group that you referred to, is that one of the ways that entrepreneurs listening, if they're struggling with accountability or struggling with results, are those one of the ways that they can help themselves move themselves forward?
Yeah, I'm the chief results officer for a number of mastermind groups, and most of them are organized by profession. One is like all attorneys, one is all dentists, things like that. And then I actually developed something called Super Results Days, where business owners come in small groups over Zoom, not in person, over Zoom,
Okay.
and get a lot of stuff done, but kind of try to crush their to-do list, but then also kind of get their mojo back to really go after the things that they really want, in life. So there's a number of ways that people can do it. And and today I'm hopeful we're going to unpack some things that people can start using, right away.
Absolutely. So if somebody's listening and they're not part of a mastermind group, or their group isn't going where they want, are you open to talking to people about groups in general?
Yeah, 100%. I know of a lot of different groups, can probably, make some recommendations. And if somebody's interested, the easiest thing is probably just go to blainetedx.com, BLAINETEDX.com. You can opt in for a TEDx talk that I did. And but then you'll get to know me, and there's a little email series, get to know me, but you have my contact information, and I'm happy to serve. So I'm excited to serve. And I kind of think God has me on the planet to help people with this personal implementation with self-fluent. So happy to do it. And it passes what I call the Powerball test, meaning if last weekend I were to win that Powerball lottery, I would still be here today with Dave doing this, because this is what I feel like I'm supposed to do. Even though I might have, said, Dave, I'm going to give you a new car. I might have some cool thing if I had won the Powerball.
Sure.
I would still be here, sharing the way that we are today. So it passes the Powerball test.
Well, if you can't see him, his background is a nice beach and an ocean. So, we're not going to disclose where he really is, but, because he doesn't like people knowing he's from Arizona, but we don't hold that against you at all. But thank you so much for sharing that. And if you do check out that TEDx, I have to say, I think this might be, it's at least in the running for the world's longest acronym. And, so it's WYTAYBA. So it's like, holy cow. Fill us in on what that is, and help us understand how that can help us.
Yeah. So it's a word called YTABA, but YTABA is an acronym for what you think about, you bring about. And so in my life, another one of these moments of dawning comprehension, like my son giving me the cold shoulder. I was in college. I went to Purdue University, Midwest. There we go, Midwest. Purdue University. Met my wife there. Actually, we've married 30 years now. But I was at Purdue, and I saw this ad for a book called Think and Grow Rich. And so it was a little audio cassette tape. So I'm dating myself now. Dave might not even be old enough to know audio cassettes. But anyway, I sent away for the audio cassette on this book, Think and Grow Rich. And I listened to it. It was actually read by Earl Nightingale, which was another guy that became a mentor of mine. But anyway, I listened to that, and I bought the book, and I read the book. And it was in the reading of this book, Think and Grow Rich. It talks about riches it can be financial, but it's also all the riches of life, whatever you desire, harmonious relationships, good health, all those things, that there was a systematic way to go about bringing those things about, and that what you think about, you bring about. We kind of become what we think about. And so I created that little acronym. That's what my TEDx talk is about, but it's that power that you have to influence yourself, and it's a power you already have. And I think it's one of our greatest powers. What you think about, you bring about. So it kind of begs the question: how do you control what you think about? And it answers a lot of why people end up where they end up in life
Sure.
And most of the time we talk about like a garden, like most of the time people either plant nothing, then the weeds grow, or they let someone else plant in their garden and then they grow what other people are looking for. So it's important to take control of your thoughts. And there's a lot of ways to do that. We could unpack that. And it's
Sure.
important to have habits and, and to get the right things done.
Wow. Well, I tell you, one of the wisest men in the world, that for me was King Solomon. And he said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And, so I think that that's a really unique way to approach it. What you think about, you bring about. So thank you for sharing that. So yeah, for somebody that's listening, that this might be new to them, or they might be more in that victim mentality where things happen to me. I don't control what goes on in my life. Everything, happens to me type of thing. What are some simple things that you encourage your clients to do, and what are some things you can help us with today? Like you said, just simple things to get us pushed in the right direction.
Yeah, Dave, that's a great question. And so people have, I end up calling it head trash.
Sure.
So
Yep.
people have varying levels of head trash. And so victim mentality is a tough one. That's garbage bags full of trash, and then other people have
Yeah.
smaller, like I have the little office trash can of trash, but there were times in my life where I had a lot of head trash. And so I talk about hacking your head trash. And one of the first principles that I learned back, my favorite mentor of all times is Jim Rohn. So I got to share the stage with him, and I learned a lot from him. But one of the sayings that I have is that the solution to pollution is dilution, right? So the solution to pollution is dilution, meaning that if you had like this beaker of dark water, and the more clear water you pour in there, it kind of gets clearer and clearer and clearer. So you dilute down the pollution. So the head trash, when you have the head trash, one is, there's some techniques we could talk about to kind of flip the head trash on its head and make it help you instead of hurt you. That's one thing we could do. But the other thing is, you have to realize that you have to dilute it down with good stuff. And so for me, my ratio, now my ratio might be 1-to-1, meaning if I have an hour of a pity party or an hour of feeling like a victim, I only need an hour of good stuff to neutralize it out. But early on in my career, I needed 5 or 10 hours of positive to dilute down the negative. So I used audio programs from Jim Rohn, right? But what you do is you need to take control of as many as you can, the inputs to your life, and take control of as many as those as you can and make them positive. What do I mean? All the things you're listening to, right? Are you listening to, motivational things that are of what you want? Are you listening to autobiographies of the people you want to become, right? So all the things you're listening to, what are you watching? What are the things that you're watching? So everything that you're seeing, what are you thinking about? What are you eating, right? What are you touching? What are you feeling? Like all these inputs, who are you hanging around, right? All of these things affect you. And so if you begin a big switch, to encouraging, empowering inputs, you're going to feel that shift. And it's kind of a battle of the brain chemistry. And once you start to win that battle, you start to feel better. And now all of a sudden you feel like, wow, I feel like exercising now, and it's a big spiral up. But the big thing for me, I would say, is the solution to pollution is dilution. And you really have to start to be putting good stuff in. And that could be, reading books, that could be, sacred literature, whatever it is, pouring more of that in than the other stuff, and taking ownership and taking responsibility for where you are, knowing that you can improve that, you can change it. A couple of other things to put in your toolkit. The one I like is whenever your mind tells you something negative, what you want to do is you want to but it. So if somebody says I'm not spending enough time working in my business, but, and so when you say but, your brain wants to answer that with the opposite, right? So I'm not working enough in my business, but you control your schedule, but you're going to hire somebody, but you're going to use the 80-20 rule and oust the 80 and focus in on the 20. Your mind starts to give you the answers, when you kind of, but those thoughts. And again, the earlier you can get them, the better. Like if it festers for minutes and hours, it's hard to come back. You got to pour a lot in. But when you start doing it faster, faster, and faster, then it really it really can turn around quickly for you.
So does self-awareness come into play in here? I kind of feel like the more aware you are, like you just said, if you catch it early, it's way easier than if you catch it late. It's kind of like the weeds. I mean, it was crazy. My neighbor across the street from me, they plant garden and there's all these vegetables, and day one it looks gorgeous, right? It's all dark brown dirt and really beautiful, but like a week or so, this is probably 2 weeks now, it's all weeds, and they just didn't keep up with it. And now we spent hours trying to de-weed this thing. So I'm assuming, like you said, catching it early, but that really is self-awareness, understanding that you have this propensity or you have this issue up front. Is that kind of accurate in that spot there?
Yeah, you're dead on with that. And there's something called forced self-awareness. And so what I like to do is to have a consistency of that self-awareness, so that you're kind of weeding the garden on a daily basis, and not like leaving for a week or 2 weeks and coming back, and it's really hard to do. And so I do that in the morning. I take what's called a mind shower. So people take physical showers, wash your body, but how often do you wash your mind? So I spend 10 minutes in the morning, and I wash my mind. So I use an app called Headspace for that. It's like a meditation app. But I'm kind of weeding out the garden, each morning. So that works really, really well, is to put something in. And we can talk about how to create new habits too, so that you can lock that habit in to happen all the time. But that's one. And then I also think that if you keep exposing yourself to podcasts like this one, something's gonna spark in you that you will remember and you'll take with you, and it'll kind of change the way you think. Right. I like, a while back, I heard this quote. It was in a book called The One Thing. And it was, when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. Now, when I heard that, I wrote it down, I was like, whoa, I stopped and I wrote it down. I said, but when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. And then all of a sudden, because you said, I had this self-awareness about that, I hear myself like arguing for stuff like, I'm too old, I'm too young, I can't do this, we can't do that. Even like with our family, we can't do that. But I'm like, wait a second, I'm arguing for these limitations. And I'm hearing it in myself, and then I'm starting to hear it in other people's voices, right? And now, around our house, we're like, oh, you're arguing for your limitations. And then, it's the awareness. It's like a collective awareness, around it. But there are those, inflection points, or those great, sometimes it's a mentor or a book or a quote, that really heightens that self-awareness too.
Sure. Wow, that's awesome. When you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. So, wow, that's really deep. And, I'm hoping that hits everybody listening as much as it is me. And it's, but so let me ask this, because you hinted at it and I want to kind of immerse in that. So let's just say, because this is true for me, it's the first time that I've heard those words put together in that sentence. I've never heard that before. So if I want to take that and now get that to become a habit for me, whether I want to think it, I want to act it, whatever it is, I want that to become more important in my life. The reality is the combat part of that is the curve of forgetting that says, hey, 80% of what you're going to remember, or what you hear here in the next 45 minutes or an hour, you're going to forget if you don't do something with that. So, you talk about 21-second habits, you talk about different things like that. So what do I do if I'm listening and I really want to keep that when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. If I want that to become part of my life, what's the next step here?
Yeah, good question. And so let's get real practical here. And so the 21-second habit, how to create a new habit in 21 seconds, not 21 days. Now, if they told you it takes 21 days, somebody lied to you. But science does say it's really about 60 days, like for the neurons and everything to really be programmed. But you can hack that, and you can do it kind of almost instantly. And that's why I say you can do it in 21 seconds. And so the first thing to realize that I have this company called Selfluence. I always say powered by Selfluence, but these are things that you already have the ability and the power, and you've already done it. Okay. So there's nothing new to learn. You're just kind of like turning it back on. And so when I'm in a big audience, I'll say, how do people feel about, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well they keep new habits? And most people say, I'm not good at it. I'm not really a good habit master. And my New Year's resolutions are always gone by the second week of January and all this stuff. But that's not true. And so the first premise here on the 21-second habit is that you're already a habit master. And we're going to kind of tap into that. So let me tell you a story about my wife. So my wife, luckily she doesn't have this anymore, but she used to have nearly daily migraine headaches. And so the doctor said, look, here's this log. It's the headache log. You got to fill this out. Like, what did you eat? What do you think triggered it? What was the weather like that day? What was the barometric pressure? All this stuff. And so she would do it for a couple of days, and then she'd lose the log, or she'd forget to do it. And then she'd have a migraine, and then I'd ask her about it. And that was bad news, bad spouse. So what happened though, one day, I was noticed that she was brushing her teeth. And I thought to myself, she is a twice a day teeth brusher, 2 minutes, just like the dentist said. And she never misses a day of brushing her teeth. So the first part of the 21-second habit is what I call habit linking. And so what we did is we took the headache log, we put the toothbrush and the toothpaste on top of it, and we put the pen there. And every morning and every night, as she brushed her teeth for those 2 minutes, she filled out that log, and she went 90 days in a row. So before she'd lose it 1-2 days, forget it. She went 90 days in a row filling that out because she habit linked it to a habit that she was already a habit master of. No willpower required, right? It just, when she went to brush her teeth, there it was. So she filled it out. And now today she has a migraine maybe once every 3 months or 4 months. So it's really, dramatically improved. So that's the first key. Now I'll give you an example. There's a second key and a third key to it. But the second key here is, so I noticed that I said, hey, this habit linking, let's see if this works for me. So I had 2 habits that I wanted to start. One was I wanted to do this Bible app every day. And then the other one is I wanted to do that mind shower. So I wanted to do this headspace. So I thought to myself, okay, Blaine, what do you do? I said, I want to do this first thing. What is the first thing you do every morning? No willpower required, no brain power, nothing. I don't need any power to do it. And it's this, it's my smartphone, right? Every day, every morning, I pick up my smartphone. And now sometimes it's the alarm clock. So then I'm really picking it up to turn the alarm off. But what I did is I moved all the apps off the home page, and I just put those 2 apps on there. And I said, I'm going to habit link the first time I open my phone, I have to do those 2 apps before I'm allowed to do anything else on the phone. So I habit linked it to that. And that happens every single day. And the other thing, the second key though, is one is the habit linking, but the second key is it's more powerful if you can surf some kind of urge to that you want to do. You surf the urge to do something, and that generates the energy to knock out the new habit. So in my case, when I open my phone, why am I really opening my phone? I want to see if my kids texted me. My one son lives in Denmark. I wanted to see if any orders came in, what new emails came in, what's going on in the world. Like I have all this desire, and I surf that urge to want to check all that stuff. I surf that urge to get me to do those 2 things. And today, when I did it this morning, today was like day 1,535 days in a row, because the apps track it, which I like that too. But I have this streak now of over 1,500 days in a row because 1, I did the habit linking, and 2 is I surf the urge to want to do something. And then 3 is if you can have some type of leverage, and we're looking for pain and pleasure, both work. So I've had a pain saying, if I don't do this, I make an agreement with my wife or an accountability buddy. And if I don't do this habit, there's some penalty I pay. I have to do 1,000 push-ups or something like that. That's on the pain side. But the pleasure could also be, hey, if I do this for 30 days in a row, I'm going to go buy that watch I wanted or something. So putting in some leverage, in their works. I just had, just the other week, I had an attorney, Ann, and she's like, Blaine, you tell me next day planning is so important, and I never plan my day. And I'm like, okay, Ann, what is the first thing you do every morning without any willpower, without anything? She says, I make a cup of coffee. I said, there you have it. So habit link, buy the coffee maker, put a pad of paper and a pen, and you can't take the first sip till you start the list for the day. Now, even if it's just a list of the top 3 things you want to do, that's fine. You can make the list while you drink the coffee, but you got to start the list before the coffee, right? So she surfed the urge to want to drink coffee. That was her urge that she surfed there. So anyway, that's the key: habit linking, surfing an urge, and then maybe having some leverage. So in your case, if you wanted to remember that quote, you could link it to something that happens one or more times a day, like your phone. One of the things I talk about in my TEDx talk is the fact that you see your unlock screen on your phone close to 100 times a day. So you could make the unlock screen of your phone that quote, and then consciously you would see it all day long, but subconsciously you'd be seeing it a lot.
Well, that's crazy. And I was going to ask you about the 1,500 and some days that you have had your habit. And then I realized for me that I've been using a food app called Noom, and it just tracks my food. And I just looked while you were talking, and I've actually logged 281 meals without even knowing it. I mean, it's just kind of a natural thing. So I totally get that I understand that piece. So if you're listening, I think that's a really great spot, to link a habit with something that you're already doing, whether it's the coffee, whether it's the brushing your teeth, whatever it is. I think that's so brilliant to do. And then surf and urge. And then what was the third one again?
Is to have some type of leverage, like a pain and pleasure, right? So if you do it for so many days, you have a reward for yourself. If you fall off, we're all human. We fall off our habits, but have a little penalty, maybe make it a game with somebody else to that helps you to solidify and to keep it going. There's a psychological power. After you get about 3 or 4 days in a row, you really want to keep that habit. So it begins to gain some power there.
Well, I think a great leverage on that is, if you miss, you should send Blaine $1,000.
I know that works,
right? Exactly. Or buy one of his books and read a chapter or whatever. But wow, that's so cool. So that's the 21-second habit. And thank you so much for sharing that. I want to circle way back to something that you talked about, and I wrote it down, was, and I think this is really helpful for entrepreneurs I just wrote hang around. And I think about how important it is to make sure you're hanging around the right people. And I think that, negativity breeds negativity. And I know for myself, if I end up in a conversation with somebody and it's negative, it's real easy to jump on that, train and just go down that negative train, whether it's about, the government, whether it's about another person, whether it's a company, whatever it is, you can pick your poison. But I think, that's one of the cool things about the mastermind group is I got to believe that it's hard to get away with negative discussion in your groups for very long. I mean, I might be having a bad day and I can share something negative, but I really enjoyed John Gordon's no complaining rule, where he said, you can complain about anything you want as long as you have a solution in your mind and you share that solution. So if I was in your mastermind group and I was being negative, what do you kind of, how do you approach that for people listening?
Yeah. So there is, there's an allowed time for venting, and for getting it off your chest, and explaining, what's going on. There's an amount of time you're allowed for that. And typically it's minutes, just minutes, because then the conversation switches to implementation. So all the masterminds that I'm a part of, it's all about implementation, getting results, chief results officer. And so it would be, well, what are you going to do about that? How are you going to learn from that? What's your next step? And sometimes you have to really dial down the resistance to the next step till it gets so small that it's a step you feel like you could take. And that could just be that you have to, you're gonna schedule an hour to think about solutions to that thing, right? Or maybe get with a friend and figure it out. But you really want to switch and you want to talk about the problem just minutes, and talk a lot more about the solutions, where to go, what to do next. There's always something to learn from the past. And then how are you going to step into the future? And how did that thing that's happening make you better for the future? Because it really has.
And I'm just shocked that, it doesn't happen more in teams. I mean, I think about a leader listening right now and, it's easy to let your team kind of vent, like you said, but I like the fact that we're limiting it to minutes. So how are we, now that we've kind of got that out there, it's kind of sitting there as a blob. What do we do with it? If we aren't coming up with next steps, implementing solutions, we've just really kind of made it worse because now everybody feels bad. And without some kind of, solution, it just doesn't seem to be so successful. So I'm assuming that implementation and next steps is everybody in the team, so to speak, participates in that. And we come up with best case scenarios and then we implement. Is that kind of how you do that?
Yeah. And action, action kills fear, right? So action, and taking steps, that's where, and making decisions, really, that's where the worry and the fear and the frustration subside. So it's really, you make a decision, you start to take some action. And as that action, and sometimes, like I said, you got to dial it way down into small chunks, because as you make progress, then all those feelings of the bad feelings go away, right? So again, it's making a decision first, then it's getting a plan of action, and then taking some small steps and measuring and kind of feeling the progress. Finishing is fun, and that's where the positive, kind of that battle for the brain chemistry, flips a switch, and you get energized, right? Done is the engine of more. It's like when you start to get stuff done, you want to get more stuff done. And it's a kind of a great positive brain chemistry, going, that positive polarity, baby. Sure. The pull of positive polarity. I love that.
Well, especially done when the bag of chips is done, I want more. So, yes. I totally get that. When done means more for me on the Doritos. So, but that's so cool that we feel like, I think there's a lot of people that let things happen to them. My parents, so I said there's three kinds of people. There are people that watch things happen, there are people that make things happen, and then there's people that don't know what's happening. And I didn't want to be that last person, and I really struggled to just watch things happen. I always say I'd much rather play a game than watch a game, for me personally. And so, there's just the natural energy to do that. If somebody's listening and they don't have that natural energy, or they're okay watching things happen, how do you encourage them, to kind of get in the game a little bit? I'm just curious if you have any feedback for them.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different levels here. So one is if there's a low level of ambition to, like you really don't feel drawn to do something, then you may need to really, you might need some more clarity. You might need some more think time to figure out, like, what is exciting to you? What is it you want to do? I often talk about that Powerball. I talked about that Powerball lottery, right? The Powerball test. But the Powerball test is actually an exercise where you win the $500 million Powerball, and then you do all the partying. You buy your chief results officer a new car, of course, but you party for a year. You get, all the kids are taken care of in the trust funds, and you bought the houses and the boats, and you did it all. And it's a year later, and a year later you wake up, you still have 100 million in the bank, but you don't have to do anything. What would you do? So I've done this exercise with hundreds of business owners, and what's funny is 90-something% of the answers are they say, I would help people blank. Now the blank is different for everybody based on their experiences, but they would help people in some way, right? In some way. So service to many leads to greatness, the master teacher taught. So I think sometimes if there's no ambition, you gotta get a little, maybe even get a little spiritual to figure out what is that ambition. Right. And once you find that ambition, though, then that's where, you can't steer a parked car. That's where you need to be moving. And so you need to pick something and move, but don't fall into the trap. Solomon talks a lot about this. Don't fall into the trap of comparing yourself to other people, but compare yourself to yourself. So it's kind of like you bettering your best. And so, if you did, 5 minutes of exercise this 1 week per day, just getting to 6 minutes the next week, that's a win. That's you're moving in the right direction. So kind of better your best, compare yourself to yourself, and move in that direction that you want to go. And it's going to feel good. It's going to feel energizing. And if it doesn't, then maybe you have to come back and reassess that. Now, if it doesn't feel good, you have no ambition, like for long periods of time, then you got to step into a different category where you may need to talk to somebody like a professional person, right?
Sure.
I often recommend when people have severe things, that's like above my pay grade, and now today I love the internet. There's
Sure.
talkspace.com is a website. I've used it myself where you can talk to a licensed therapist, and
Okay.
it's very inexpensive. Actually, my insurance paid for it when I did it.
Nice.
But anyway, it's easy to get access to help. So don't think that that's some weird thing or not. It's
Yeah.
quite common, and it's good to have a counselor or someone to talk to. Now, I like the mastermind group collection of business owners. I typically now can go to them and talk out my problems and my
Sure.
opportunities and my decisions with
Sure.
them, and get some pretty good advice.
That's awesome. And that's, one of the great things about mastermind groups is that ability to tap into other people, because we have a limit. My next book I'm working on, Blaine, is about business blind spots. And that's the weird thing, is you don't know what you don't know. So,
Right.
I always talk about like Charles Barkley's golf swing versus Tiger Woods' golf swing. Charles Barkley has a really bad glitch in his swing, or at least he used to. And you don't know, if he never watched a video of it, like another person's perspective, he'd never really know how bad it was. And that's where I think it's so helpful, whether it's a mastermind group or people like, the America's only chief results officer. That's why people like Blaine and I are here, is to be able to come alongside people and help them with those types of things. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to try and remember, and I am going to remember, when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. I'm going to put that on my board, and that's going to be my new thought process. So I appreciate you sharing that information.
No problem. And when your book comes out, you let me know, and I will buy it on Amazon, and I will give you a great review. But I know that, just like in driving, that is some of the most dangerous place for the business owner are those blind spots. And many times they don't see it. Like there's something fundamentally wrong with their business model. The profit's not there, and they just keep driving when they're just about to get hit with something, So I think that's going to be a great book. And I look forward to being able to read it myself and then share it with other people.
Well, thank you. I'm honored. And I think that whether it's a mastermind group, whether it's a coach, whether it's a confidant, it really doesn't matter what the method is. It's that you have somebody, that you can come alongside, that will come alongside you and help you with that glitch in your swing, help you look at your P&L and help you understand what's going on. And that's why I think business coaches are so successful today, is because how many business owners listening right now, they're fantastic at what they do. They're the best plumber. They're fantastic at selling this. They make a widget, whatever it is. They have all these things that they just do killer jobs on, but trying to build a team or trying to figure out marketing or selling, I mean, they just struggle with a lot of those business chunks. So that's why Blaine and I are here. So, hey, as we land this today, I want to ask, if today was your last day, what would you do first? What do you think you'd do first if you woke up and the Lord said, you know what, Blaine, today's your last day. Enjoy it however you'd like, but at the end of the day, you're coming home. What would that look like for you? What would be the first thing that you would do?
So if I got that great gift, now some people might say you're dying, but if I got, a full 24 hours or maybe 18 hours, whatever it is, if I got a full day knowing that it was the last day, I would see that as a big gift. And I would gravitate first towards memorable moments with the people that I love, which is what, when you talk to people near the end of life, that's all they ask for, not money or business,
right?
More memorable moments with people they love. So I would probably, spend some of that time with my family, and or maybe make a video for them. So that would be one. And the other component would be, they say, don't die with the music in you. So I would probably spend some time either jumping on a podcast, recording a video like this, and just trying to get a few last things that might help somebody along the way of life. the path of life, try to get some final messages kind of out to the world. That's probably what I would do. And I luckily I've done a fairly good job of not causing a lot of commotion in life, or not having a lot of people to forgive, or them to forgive me, or me to forgive them. So I've done pretty good in that regard. And I remember I was listening to an audio program by Dr. Wayne Dyer one time, and he said that the ideal thought about when you were going to die is about 6 months. Like, live your life like you have about 6 months left, which is that's long enough that you're not going to do something too crazy, but it's short enough that you're going to really make the most of every day. You know? And so when my son gave me the cold shoulder and I decided to be a work from home dad, I never regretted the time with the family, even though it slowed the business down sometimes, and then sending kids to college, that slows down the retirement money for sure. But, it's, I never regret that, because at an early age, I did realize that it's memorable moments with people that you love and enjoy. That's the stuff that life is really made of.
Wow. So does your son take claim for the fact that he made you stay home? Does he know that he did that, or do you remind him of that, or is that mom's the word on that?
No. He knows that he played a key role, a pivotal role,
That's awesome.
And so he played a big role there, and it was fun. It was fun to be, at home and be able to be the coach for the different leagues and all that stuff. I really enjoyed it. And he's now out of the nest, and he went to college and graduated and got his dream job working for Apple. And he did that for 5 years, and now he's engaged, and he just moved to Denmark this year.
Wow.
Him and his fiance, to kind of live in Europe. He took a job with Vivino, which is a wine app, but they're living in Europe so they can travel around, like when they're young and they don't, they're just engaged, and so they're really having a great time over there. So it's
awesome. And what's his first name again?
Bo.
Oh, that's right. So Bo, I know you're listening, so you got to tell your dad that he owes you some money. So you fill in I don't want to say a dollar amount because I don't want to limit the guy, but Bo, you are definitely due some cash. So call dad and say, Dad, send me some money. So
now our agreement with our kids was we'll get you through college. So we did pay all the way through college. And then our daughter went on to med school, which she handled on her own. But she recently became a medical doctor. But anyway, so we gave back to the kids, all the way up through college. So
but he's in Hard Knocks University, so he's not graduated yet. So don't try and take that easy way out there, Blaine. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out today. And I want to encourage the listeners, rather than go on to your next podcast, rather than just hit the button and say that was really good. There's something here for you. There's a reason you jumped on. There's a reason that you listened. And all I want you to do is take advantage of that reason. There's probably one thing right now that's burning in your mind, and wow, I wish I could, or I really need to do this, whatever that is. I just want to encourage you to take that step. And if that step requires reaching out to Blaine, that's awesome. Blaine, what's the best way for people listening to reach out to you and connect with you?
Yeah, the simplest thing is just go to BlaineTEDx.com. So it's BlaineTEDx.com. And there you can opt in, get a copy of my TEDx talk, but then we'll be connected. And, anything I do, you'll hear about, but I'll be there to help you if I can in any way. Awesome. Well, thank you. I got a ton of notes like I always do. This is so cool. I gotta memorize WYTAYBA. So I got some homework ahead of me. So, but hey, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be better off on the back end for it. And so you can honestly say today that you helped an entrepreneur, i.e. me, get closer to their goal. So thank you so much for investing the time, and I can't wait to learn more. All right. Thank you, Dave. I really enjoyed it. And again, service to many leads to greatness, and you're doing some great stuff. So thanks for having me on. Thank you so much.